So the 49ers trade for Brian Robinson becomes official on Sunday. And so one of the interesting things about the trade was that it is announced as a conditional sixth round pick in the 2026 NFL draft. So the condition is that the Commanders will get the second or the final pick that the 49ers have in that round, because right now they currently have their own pick and they also have the pick acquired from the Minnesota Vikings in the Jordan Mason trade. So the condition, of course, is if the 49ers finish ahead of Washington in the standings, finish ahead of Minnesota in the standings, then the Commanders will get the Vikings pick and then vice versa. So the 49ers have the two picks right now, but the Commanders will get the second of those picks. Hope that makes sense. The sixth round pick that the 49ers give up to get Sky Moore, along with a seventh round pick that comes from Kansas City, that's in the 2027 draft, so that doesn't impact this at all. Also, when you look ahead to the compensatory picks for the 49ers next year, right now, according to overthecap.com, they are scheduled to get 2 fourths and 2 fifths because the free agents that they lost are very much out of proportion to the free agents that they gained. So therefore, they will get the maximum number of compensatory picks. Okay. On this video, we're going to talk about not only the 53-man roster, I talked about that on my last video, but also the open spots as far as starting positions for the 49ers. As I look at it offensively, assuming again that everybody is healthy, that the guys that we think are going to be there are going to be there, there's basically no competition for the starting spots on offense for the 49ers. We know it's going to be Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Kyle Juszczyk in the backfield, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, George Kittle, and then the offensive line will be Trent Williams, Ben Barch, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, and Colton McKivitz. Where it becomes a little bit iffy is what is Juwan Jennings' situation as far as the calf injury, also the contract situation. And then if he can't go here this week 1 and the NFL comes down with the suspension for Demarcus Robinson, who's the second starting wide receiver? At this point, we don't know that. Also, if Pooney can't go week 1 against Seattle, it certainly looks like it'll be the rookie Connor Colby starting at right guard because he's the guy who's been working there at that position ever since Pooney left the starting lineup. Okay, to me, the bigger questions are on the defensive side of the ball. And it does get interesting here. Now, we know that a lot of different defensive linemen will play. 49ers like to have that rotation. All NFL teams like to have a rotation of 7, 8 defensive linemen getting into the action. Quite clearly, Nick Bosa will play a large percentage of the 49ers defensive snaps. We're talking anywhere from 65 probably to 80% of the defensive snaps. So I think the starting defensive line looks pretty well set, or at least I think the guys who we can expect to play the most, again, if all these guys are healthy, would be Nick Bosa at one defensive end, Michael Williams at the other defensive end, as long as he gets back out there. And Kyle Shanahan did say after the game on Saturday that Michael Williams is tracking well. He should be back at practice this week. So that's good news for the 49ers and their number 1 pick, or their first-round draft pick, number 11 overall. So Bosa and Michael Williams, with Michael Williams potentially moving inside to rush the passer in nickel situations. The starting defensive tackles, I think, are pretty obvious at this point. It's Jordan Elliott and also Kalia Davis. Those are the two guys who have been around, who had very good camps. Elliott returning from the injury, the back injury, but a guy who started a lot of NFL games. So CJ West, again, hyperextended knee, just like Michael Williams, has been out. I don't expect him to start week 1, although it appeared to be tracking in that direction the way he started off training camp, playing very well. The other guy is Kalia Davis. In the very first 53-man roster projection I put together, I did not have Clea Davis making the team. But now I think it's very clear he had a really good camp, and it kind of harkens back to last year when Clea Davis got off to a really good start in the preseason, had a good offseason program, but then got injured late in that first preseason game in Nashville against the Tennessee Titans. Well, Davis has stayed healthy. He's looked good, and I think he's clearly one of the 49ers' 4 best defensive linemen and probably their best defensive tackle if you look at how he started training camp to where he is now. In fact, I mean, who would have thought that Clea Davis would be held out of the final preseason game because his spot is wrapped up, and that's how valuable he is to the team. So 49ers want to get production out of CJ West. They want to get production out of Alfred Collins, but as rookies, I think CJ West, the 4th-round pick, is ahead of Alfred Collins. Collins just hasn't really caught on all that well. He stayed healthy through training camp, but a lot of work to do there. Bottom line, a lot of guys will play on the defensive line for the 49ers this season. I don't think it's that big of a deal who's going to be the starters, who's going to be out there when the game begins. The more telling thing will be who's out there when the game finishes. And of course, I should mention that 49ers head into this day still required to cut from 90 players to 53. And the Brian Robinson trade that went down, the corresponding move to that to fit him onto the 53-man roster was the wide receiver Malik Knowles being waived. Okay, the linebacker position, that was going to be a competition when training camp started. I don't know that it turned into any kind of competition really as far as the weak side linebacker spot. D. Winters really from start to finish took that position, although if training camp were to start right now, I might have a different opinion because I think Nick Martin really came on, and it would not surprise me if at some point down the road, even this season, Nick Martin gets more and more and more playing time and maybe even unseats D. Winters for that starting spot. But right now, we know Fred Warner is going to be a starter quite clearly. He's the best linebacker in the game. Then it's D. Winters, and also I guess it's Luke Gifford at the strong side linebacker position. That's a position that plays roughly a third of the snaps because when the 49ers go to their nickel defense, those money downs, that third linebacker comes off the field and the nickel back comes in. So if we're going to talk about the strong side linebacker as a starter, only playing 33% of the time, let's talk about the nickel back who plays 2/3 of the time. And Upton Stout had that job, but then he had the calf injury. So that, I guess, is a competition as training camp comes to a conclusion and the 49ers start to set their sights on the first game of the regular season. Upton Stout was the guy, basically no questions asked, but then he gets out of the lineup with the injury, and then Chase Lucas steps in, and Chase Lucas did a really good job. Chase Lucas has the versatility to play outside. He has the versatility to play the nickelback position, cover the slot receiver. But I still think if Upton Stout is healthy, he did enough early on in training camp, has such a high ceiling that he's the 49ers starting nickelback. So we know who the starting cornerbacks are going to be. It's going to be Deommodore Lenoir or Renardo Green. Basically, the only positions for the 49ers right now that are up in the air that we don't know, how it's going to turn out decisively, without question, that's at the safety spots. And Malik Mustafa is the most clear starting safety the 49ers have in their building right now. However, he's not going to be ready. I talked to him after the game on Saturday. He was telling me about just kind of the freak nature of his knee injury, where he had the ACL surgery back at Wake Forest. And then in that final game against the Arizona Cardinals, he didn't even realize anything was wrong with his knee. He just thought that, he had some bruising, he had some skinned up knees, both sides. And then, things just didn't seem right, but it didn't seem too out of the ordinary. Turns out that graft that he had with the ACL surgery gave way. They had to do a surgery on January 21st to basically reconstruct that. And so he said the time frame is basically 9 months since then. So he will start the season on PUP. He won't play. This is very similar to what I've been talking about with Brandon Ayuk. He had the surgery. He will start on PUP, which means he has to sit out the first 4 games of the season. Week 5 is that short week, a Thursday game where they don't practice. That's against the Rams. So the first time you can really expect to see either Brandon Ayuk or Malik Mustafa would be week 6 when the 49ers go to Tampa Bay. He's feeling good, but he understands that there's no reason to rush back out there. After all, as a rookie last season, really good player. The 49ers have him for under contract for the rest of this year, obviously, and then the next 2 years. Okay, so Malik Mustafa won't be out there week 1. Who will be? I think Jason Pinnock is going to be a starter, no questions asked. He comes over from the Giants. He started every game for the Giants the past 2 years. I think he's going to be one of the guys where the real competition is, and maybe the only true competition on the 49ers as far as offense and defense. It's for that other safety position. Is it going to be Jair Brown, 3rd round pick from Penn State, who was the 49ers' first pick in that draft because they didn't have a 1st round pick or a 2nd round pick? That was 3 years ago, I guess. He's entering his 3rd year. Will it be Jair Brown or will it be Marquise Siegel? I get the feeling that the 49ers just haven't been at all satisfied with how Jair Brown has progressed his game from his rookie season when he was the starter on that Super Bowl team and intercepted Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl last year. His play kind of dipped, he loses his starting job later in the season. And at the end of last season, it was Talanoa Hufanga and Malik Mustafa who ended up starting. So that to me is a major competition. My opinion is that Marquise Siegel is going to win that job, and he'll be the guy starting week 1 for the 49ers against the Seattle Seahawks. So that's kind of the rundown here of where the 49ers roster is. Not necessarily the roster. Check out my previous video, me talking about the 53-man roster or the 52-man roster, if you will, because I think that there's a chance that they fill 52 spots and keep 1 spot open for someone from the outside. But that's also the 49ers starting situation heading into the regular season. So thanks for watching this video, and that is it for now.